To the man who needs no introduction.
Alrighty, I'm Matt Miller, branch manager here at Annie Mac Home Mortgage.
I am Aaron Jacobson, sales manager here at Annie Mac Home Mortgage.
And Nathan Fitzgerald, Nate the Great. Just kidding. Branch manager with Annie Mac Mortgage as well. So,
Welcome.
yeah, excited about this. Lots of topics to talk about, right? A lot of stuff going on right now.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah.
A lot of uncertainty in the market for sure.
It's funny. I was talking to, he was like a commercial real estate agent, and he's like, if I hear another reel, about, he's like, but you know what? On a serious note, can you tell me what's going on with this whole NAR thing?
Yeah, I don't want to hear anything about it, but can we talk about
Can you
it?
just give me the shortened version of it, as if a reel isn't short enough. Right?
Yeah. So to that topic, NAR, the lawsuit, let's kind of dive in for a couple of minutes on it. I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. Nate, what's your opinion? What have you been hearing?
Well, yeah,
on the
maybe
street?
for not everybody's going to know what's going on, so let's start there. So, Aaron, maybe you can give us a super quick, high level. What is this whole NAR lawsuit? Where did that stem from? Where did it come from? What is it?
Yeah, great question. And if you haven't heard of it, it has consumed the real estate industry for months now. But essentially, there was a massive class action lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors, and basically having to do with agent commission and how it's paid. Traditionally in our industry, the buyer's agent commission is paid through the listing agent's commission. There's been a lot of uncertainty on how that was disclosed, and so this was brought up in a class action lawsuit. That's a tough word to say. But there was recently a settlement, and all we know from the settlement, there was what was the number? It was 400.
It's like 451 million or something crazy.
I think it was 518.
Okay, I trust
I'm a
your.
fucking nerd.
We'll have to fact check that. I don't think he's right.
Fact check that shit. That's 100 burpees if he's wrong. That'll be good content when he's wrong. We make him do burpees.
I'd like to see 100 burpees.
I'm not wrong.
514 or
wait to be
518. It's definitely not 400.
If I win, you have to do it in front of your team.
I mean, I'm right. Can you pull it up right now?
Not right.
No?
Yeah, we need Jamie to fact check this.
I think it needs to be 500 for Matt if he's wrong, because he's a little bit in better shape than us.
Sliding scale.
But anyway, coming back to this thing, so the lawsuit is against who?
It's against the National Association of Realtors.
And why?
That's a good question. I think that's what we're really all trying to figure out, right? Essentially, home sellers were upset that they were the ones that were paying for the buyer's real estate agent's commission. The result of the settlement is, all we know so far, this is going to take effect in mid-July, and the buyer's agent commission can no longer be listed on the MLS. At the heart of it, that's really all that came out of this settlement. Now, what's to come from there? I think that's what's very much up in the air, and that's the uncertainty that we're seeing.
Well, I think the big perception here is that sellers are paying for everyone's commissions, right? They're paying for their own agent to represent them to sell the house, but then they're also having to pay for the commission of the buyer's agent who's bringing the client to the house. And so I think that's at the stem of the litigation, is like, why does the seller have to pay for the commission of the agent who's bringing, right? And so they're trying to say, if you want an agent to represent you,
what's your cost?
That's your cost. You pay for your agent, right?
Exactly.
And we've been doing this since the dawn of time. I mean, I've been in the industry for 13 years. This has been going on for, 30, 40 years? I don't even know what the origin of this is, right?
Sure.
So since we know it. So this is like really earth-shattering news for realtors. And, as an example, my wife is a realtor, and she's predominantly a buyer's agent. So what does that look like for a buyer's agent versus a listing agent? So, I mean, maybe let's talk about that. Like, what's the impact to the industry? What's the impact to the agent and to someone's livelihood, for example?
Yeah, and I think real estate agents are going to have to navigate change right now, which is the first time outside of the change in the contract in the last at least 10 years that I've been in the business that there's been any change. in real estate.
True.
And how it's done, and not necessarily is it a buyer's market, is it a seller's market, but like commissions, contracts, guidelines, like these things are things and speed bumps that us as lenders have been navigating for the last 10 years. You know, we had Dodd-Frank cut our commissions. TRID made it way more difficult for borrowers to qualify. Now we have additional loan products because guidelines are tighter. So we have non-QM. So we've had to learn these additional loans. We have faster turn times. We have to remove contingencies. We have cash to keys. We have renovation products. We have margin compression. So we've been having to deal with that as lenders.
We've got people across the country that can steal business from us versus
Correct.
a realtor.
Online
I mean, you can't have a
lenders.
California agent steal a commission from
and
a
we
Maryland
have no buyer's
agent, right?
agency
So-
agreement, right?
Yeah.
So we help clients for 6 to 9 months, 800 estimates, help them qualify, advise them on financing. They go under contract, and we lose them, right?
See you later. I'm getting $500 cheaper. Thanks, Matt, for all your hard work. You've been great,
Appreciate
by the way.
you, but I got to do what's best for me and my family.
I can
I'm
save
sure you
$60
understand.
a month, so I'm going to go with that guy.
But I feel like, you know, we talk about this jokingly because that's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And that is something that we have just been, you know, it's like, welcome to the show of selling your value and fighting for your commission. You know, we've been dealing with this, and, you know, frankly, we only convert at 20 to 30%, something like that. Is
If
a
we're
great
good.
If we're
is a
lucky,
great
right.
loan officer commission. Most agents, when they take the buyer out and they get the listing agreement, they're 100%.
Right.
So if that's the case, and the consumer is now, my biggest thing with all of this is not all the changes that are going to happen, but the consumer is now educated
Correct.
and aware that those commissions are negotiable. And they've always been, right? Like
They've always
that's
been negotiable, right?
that's the argument is that, well, the commission has always been negotiable, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know that.
Fair.
It's not discussed, right?
Yeah.
It's not talked about.
It's not. We're in the industry, and you know, we didn't know better.
Yeah,
Right.
I've closed
Right.
1,400 deals, and I never knew that a buyer's agent could tell the real estate agent, or the seller could say, I'm not paying the buyer's commission. I've never had it happen on a transaction in 1,900 deals. And so
Well, actually, I'm lying. I guess there
maybe
are
Redfin.
Well, yeah, that
1%.
was probably the introduction of this, right? So
Yeah.
you've got Redfin coming in and saying, hey, like, you know, instead of 3%, you know, your agent's getting 3%. How about this? We'll actually give you a portion of our commission to help you, right? So that was Redfin's whole thing. And honestly, I kind of feel like that's really at the stem of where this whole thing's coming from. I feel like it's the big guys that created this lawsuit. I mean, I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but like, I feel like Zillow and Redfin are the ones that like concocted this like lawsuit through some random person that was bitter about something, and now this is like changed the industry potentially forever. So,
you know what's really interesting is, you know, they can't put those commissions on the MLS anymore. You know where they can still put them? Zillow, Redfin, Homes.com. So that's going to drive more traffic to their site, because if I'm an agent and I want to see, oh, well, I can't see on the MLS what I'm going to get paid here.
Wow.
But I can see it on Zillow.
I
or
never thought
Redfin.
about that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Talk about conspiracies.
Well, and it's so interesting how this is just, like on the lending side, flowed in the same way of the transparency of commissions with Rocket Mortgage, online lenders, right? Like, you have to show the fee sheet 3 days before closing. Like, it's slowly just gone towards that. Then the real estate side has been hit with that, but under the radar with EXP, Real, like all these brokerages,
Cloud-based brokerages.
yeah, that are cloud-based that allow for you to make more profit over your brokerage, because that transparency of what they're making hasn't been, you know, they're making a lot of money for less value, right? Over the years, they've provided a ton of value. Now that value is diminished because of internet, technology, et cetera. Same with real estate agents.
Right.
Same with lenders. Our value has diminished because guess what? Your client right now, as we're on this podcast, can literally go online to Rocket Mortgage and get a pre-qual.
They just did. I just got a notification that they had their credit pulled, and I'm just sitting here like, what just happened?
And so vice
Like,
versa.
what just happened?
With
Yeah.
real estate agents, your client can go online to Zillow and get somebody to open that door if you're on vacation and you don't have a team of showing agents or what have you. So I think the agents that we work with are pretty badass.
They're
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're going to show their value. They're the top, 1, 2, 5, 10% real estate agents in the country here in the DMV. They're going to learn how to sell, the cost of them. Like they're selling contract and negotiating, but now they're going to have to sell to their client as a buyer's agent. The listing agents have been used to that because they're selling listing commissions. But now the buyer's agents, they're going to have to learn how to sell. And we have talked about how we're going to teach them and hold classes and conferences on that sale because we've been doing it for years. They will be fine. Those agents are going to be fine. I think it's just the agents that aren't willing to learn how to sell and who are not adaptable will really, really struggle. And we just can't be naive to think that this is going to have no impact on the industry when now the customer is totally aware. And it's going to have nothing to do. So my mom's a real estate agent, and I was like, it's going to have nothing to do with you and your value. This is what's going to happen is you're going to have a consult, a buyer's consult, and the client's going to go, well, that sounds fantastic, and I would love to work with you. But Coldwell Banker down the street is offering 1%. And so as much as I would love to work with you, they're offering 1%. You're at 2.5%, and I can't. I'm a first-time home buyer. I'm a VA veteran.
I don't have an
I don't have
extra $5,000 to pay you.
I'm looking to buy a $500,000 house. I don't have the extra $7,500. That's all I got. And so it's not going to have anything to do with what we do. It's now the customer, and so we just have to pivot. We have to have, as lenders, support those agents in that. And I think it's going to be interesting because it's like it hasn't even happened yet. Like it's supposed to happen in July, but yesterday, Theone had a listing agent that told the customer who didn't have a realtor, hey, if you just come here without a real estate agent, we can negotiate a better price.
So that's an interesting point because that, in all reality, has always been the case, right? There's some clients that just go direct to the listing agent and say, I don't need representation. Maybe they're an agent themselves. Maybe there is an experienced investor, and so they just cut out that buyer's agent, or they work out or negotiate a commission split that makes sense for them, or whatever. They're going to negotiate to receive commission from that agent because they're actually more informed and they can do most of the decision making and don't need that help.
And we hate that.
We do,
because we want our clients working with agents.
Correct. Well, because it just means more work for the other professionals that are involved, right?
Totally.
But I was just thinking about this concept. You said 1%, 5%, 10%. That's who we work with, right?
Yep.
And you're right. The reality is, and I don't know what the exact statistics are, but if we go by the 80-20 principle, 80% of the production that's out there is being done by the top 20%. I mean, it might even be more
top
skewed,
10,
right?
Top
Might be
5,
top 10%, right?
Yep.
So what's
Especially
interesting is that, okay, so why is there this perception that buyer's agents don't do anything and they just collect a check? And I think it's in line with that because 80%, 90% of the agents out there
do 1 to 6 deals a year.
Right, and
So
they're
that's
not
what the consumer is seeing.
Right.
90% of
they're
the
seeing
time.
inexperience. They're seeing people that don't know how to negotiate. They're seeing that they're losing earnest money deposits on contracts because they didn't know their contract.
Right.
Well, it's just like what happened to lenders.
Yeah.
It's just like what happened to lenders. Last year, 173,000 LOs closed only one transaction.
Do you know how many LOs actually exited the business because they couldn't close one transaction?
Yeah.
Most of them.
I mean, yeah.
Like half of the LOs out there, so 50% of customer experience is with a loan officer that only closed one deal in a year.
That's crazy. One
transaction.
Wow. I knew it was bad.
And that's MBS Highway, Barry Habib statistic. The only sent it to me the other day. And so I'm like, okay, well, no shit. The consumer thinks that I am a commodity because that's 50 to whatever % of their experience. So,
and that LO is probably not going to give you the best experience from start to finish in the home buying process.
Yeah.
That's why
perception
Rocket
is.
Mortgage sells, close a deal in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Like,
Right.
it must be that simple. I mean,
Yeah.
they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So
So I think timing is strange. It's only bad for the buyer, to be honest.
It is.
It's
I agree.
really
Especially the first-time home buyer.
So tell me why. Why is it bad for the buyer? Because
our agents, just like us, do so much more than anybody gives any credit for, or has any idea that they do. People think that they just open doors. Well, guess what? I had an agent who showed houses from literally 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. this past weekend, both days. Like, that is the work that is being done that nobody, like you said, okay, well, if 80% of people don't know that those agents are out there showing those houses, that agent had to put together a list of those houses that was the criteria for the customer, take out the houses that didn't fit, do the research on those houses that maybe had defects or stuff they had to talk to the listing agent as well.
make sure it's not already under contract.
Correct.
or-
Schedule the showing, take the showing, research on the neighborhood, look at the area, then do a pricing analysis, make sure the real estate agent is pricing the deal correctly, put together the contract, put together the terms. The client that we went under contract with this weekend was 14 different offers
Right.
on the property. So my real estate agent had to look and strategically negotiate with that listing agent. What's going to put us above these other offers? And we won not 100% on what's best for the seller and the listing agent, but we won with what was best for our client through strategic negotiation of a real estate agent that's been doing it at a high level for years. And so my fear is that buyer now doesn't have that professional helping them, and now they basically go to court representing themselves, and they just get taken advantage of.
Right.
Or the buyer goes direct to the listing agent,
Yep.
right? Because they can't afford to pay for the buyer's commission of
Yep.
3% or 2.5% or whatever that number is going to look like. And on a $500,000 property, that's going to be roughly $12,000 to $15,000
Yep.
in addition to the down payment money that they were scraping up with, and the other 3%, 4%, 5% in closing costs that they had to scrape up with, and now they have to come up with an additional 2.5%. It's insane. So they're going to just go direct to the listing agent. But
Yeah.
the problem with that is that the listing agent is representing the seller.
Correct.
Right.
So who's advocating
Conflict
for the
of
buyer, right? So there is no, protection
Yeah.
Right.
for the buyer. So, the appearance is, oh, yeah, this is unfair. We're going to save money. Yeah, they don't do anything. I'm going to save money. But the reality is you might pay $30,000 more for a house because you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And price is only one part of that negotiation, right? Like that
Correct.
scenario you gave where the listing agent said, we can work out a lower price if you don't have a buyer's agent. Okay, well, what about the contingencies? What about inspection? Like, you can really get burned in a bad way if you're only focusing on how much you're paying for that
Right.
house.
I mean, totally. I see every single client that we work with that goes in unrepresented gets screwed over. Almost every single one.
Right.
Yeah.
Without us looking at the contract, and that's the reality, is a lot of times my clients will go and they'll go, hey, my neighbor said that they're selling their house and they have an agent, but I don't want to use an agent because I could get the house for cheaper. And then we end up playing real estate agent, which is not our highest and best use and our skill set. And the customer ends up getting screwed over.
Right.
And that's just the reality. And the listing agent's now going to have the control. And if we think that the top 20% of buyer's agents do all the business, dude, the listing agents, that's
It's even more skewed.
even more skewed,
Yeah.
and it's
Right.
easier. It's easier to be a listing agent. You take the pictures, and you don't have to show the houses. You don't have to get the client through referrals. I see more listings get done by my aunt, my friend, my whatever, or FSBOs, because they try to save money,
Right.
than a buyer really trusting you and taking you out on showing. So I think it's going to be very interesting landscape. I think us as lenders have to educate our customers and help our real estate agents in this because we really are partners in this. And I think, it'll play out how it's going to play out.
And for the record, it's not saying that the seller cannot pay for the
Correct.
commission. It's just saying that they will no longer unilaterally just agree to paying.
Right.
Right. So that is now part of the negotiation. So
Well, and just no one will now.
Well, and I
no one
think,
will. Yeah.
Why, like, right?
they
like,
realize they
this
don't
is the
have to.
argument with my real estate agents.
Yeah,
They're like,
that's
oh, it's
fair.
always been that way. I was like, well, now everybody knows.
Right.
So if I'm selling my house, I'm not paying for the buyer's agent.
well, but there's
'Cause I
also,
didn't know that before.
There's also an assumption that the listing agent is going to charge less in commission. That 6% commission is going to drop down to 3%. Like, that's no guarantee, right?
I mean, I've heard. I certainly won't name anybody, but like I've heard of listing agents saying, "I'll collect 5%."
I'll collect both sides. And
Great,
I'll just,
I'm going to make more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, who's being protected here? The seller, the buyer. Neither.
Yeah, and and okay, are we gonna fault listing agents for doing that when they know
No.
that they're gonna get paid less on the buy side? And so your listing agent, right? I was thinking about this when I was having a conversation with one of my agents who does like 50-50 buys and list, and he was like, "Well, if I only make 2.5% on 15 listings, and then I make 2.5% on 15 buys." Fuck it, I'll just make 5% on 15 listings.
You're in control. You have a lot
I'll
more
be in control. I'll show no buyers. I'll be 100% in control.
They come to me.
They come to me. I'll do deals faster. I can do less work and make the same amount of money, and then I can get more listings.
Now, to play devil's advocate, though, right? So, because I just painted a picture like, the evil listing agent, but the reality is this, right? Because I'll tell you, every single situation where a listing agent has to deal with an unrepresented buyer, it's massive eye rolls.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Yeah.
It's because they know that they have to do twice the work now because that buyer has no clue how to even put together an offer. So there is.
Yeah, I mean, the buyer cannot put together a contract.
They don't even know what they're doing.
You have to get someone involved to put together a contract, explain to you the legal binding document that you're signing, which is honestly, and I know we're going way over, why this lawsuit is insanity, because at the core of it, every single one of those clients, think about this, the can of worms that this opens. Every single one of those clients, like for us, like we're not legally protected with anything, ever, anymore. Every single one of those clients signed buyer's agency, listing documentation, agreed upon commissions. Signed legally. Then CD, LE, Ulta, they signed legally binding documents that then later in the court was revoked, and now they're being sued,
That's crazy.
It's wild.
right? So now the reality is those legally binding documents
Or worthless.
are worthless. They mean nothing.
That's insane. Actually, that's a
Crazy.
And the irony of it
makes me want to
all,
leave the country.
right? Like,
Yeah,
it's scary.
There's no
protection.
There's no honor too.
There's no
right?
honor.
It's like, come
There's
on.
no protection. You told me I agree to pay you X% to list my home. I busted my ass. All these agents, we know what you do. Busted my ass to get your home sold. And now we put together this class action lawsuit and we get sued. Even though we did all the right things, explaining you the documents, and you signed it. It makes no sense to me. Any other legally binding document you could never do this for. There has to be some alternative motive or reason behind it.
And big money. Big money.
Big
behind
money.
it.
And the reason
Yeah.
being is because the lawsuit is based on everyone believing that the real estate agents are overvalued, undervalued, overpaid, etc. And it's bullshit that there's a percentage of the home price that they get paid when the attorney who won the lawsuit is getting paid a percentage of the $500 million settlement. He will make $200 million. It is the highest payout of an attorney in U.S. history. The first industry lawsuit in U.S. history, highest payout, and the whole lawsuit is based off bullshit because it's a percentage.
Yeah, this
So
is all about money.
It's all about money.
It's
It
not
makes no
about
sense.
consumers. It's not about protecting,
Yep.
saving. Yeah,
We'll see how it plays out.
yeah,
It's gonna be very interesting to watch.
yeah.
For sure.
But we're going to go on offense. So for our agents, and I know we're going to clip this up, so we're going to go on offense. For our agents that are scared and worried about how NAR is going to affect their business, we're going to go on offense. We're going to educate our clients. We want to go direct to the consumer to tell them why they need to be using
I mean, we
a
believe
buyer's
that.
agent.
We know
We believe it.
that we need buyers agents
need it.
involved.
Yes.
We need
You
it.
know?
We need great agents, and we need the consumer to know the value. And so
Yeah.
this is, I think, going to be good for us because the agents are selling their value to the customer. So now they're going to be able to sell our value. So when the customer goes under contract and goes, yeah, I got a better rate from Quicken Loans, the agent's going to go, no. You're staying with Nate just like how you stayed with me because of my 2.5% commission, because I brought the value. And I think that's going to positively impact our business, to all the lenders that are out there that are nervous, and I think it's going to level up our real estate agents.
Yeah, it's shaking the
As
tree
well.
for sure. You know, I think, and it's due. You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's about time.
our tree's been shaken up pretty bad.
Very much so.
We're down to the
We're down to
bone.
the last leaves, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited because I think through any of this struggle, it's going to be people are going to get better
Yeah.
at their craft and better serve their clients, and we're going to work better together with these agents.
Yeah, I mean, in the lending world, like it's and realtors too. But I mean, the past year and a half has been the most brutal, right, that we've
Yeah.
ever
Right.
faced.
Very
And so let's talk about that. Switching topics because
Yeah.
I know I want to talk about the merge and how we're all sitting together here today.
which is why we're sitting here today, right?
Yeah, and it's out of that struggle in
Yeah.
the business, right? That we, kind of all came together, and I think that will happen in the real estate world, and it's been happening.
Yeah.
In the real estate world for the last 18 months, and this will be that next, tier of that. So, I don't know. You guys want to start on like the merge and how that all kind of came to be?
I just love, when we started on this journey of deciding whether or not we should merge, it really stemmed from just looking at things from a different perspective. So you observed, right, that lending companies were merging, right, because the weak ones, they weren't weak companies. They were offering great service, great product, but for one reason to the next, they had operational challenges, and so they were getting gobbled up one after the other. And us, Annie Mac, fortunately has been in a position where we were in a stronger position where we were able to be the ones to gobble
Buy
up
those companies,
Right,
yep.
good, sound companies that were going to provide value and help us make us stronger. And so just in that same vein, that's where this whole thing started. Is like, if it works at a corporate level, why wouldn't that work on a branch level, right? We're in the same state. We're already, talking and masterminding and constantly like trying to figure out how we can do things better. So we were, effectively already
Already doing
co-managing,
it.
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we just weren't officially together. And so that's where the idea was born. And
Exactly.
I couldn't be more thrilled, to be partnered with you because quite frankly, when you're in this role of manager, there's just so much more to it than, I could care less about the title. There's just so much responsibility. And if I'm being honest, I was falling short in a lot of categories, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. If you ask my team and if they were to be super raw with you, they'd let you know what my deficiencies were. And so now being able to partner with you, that was the real value for me, is seeing that, there's things that I am really good at and there's things that I'm not really that great at. And seeing how you balance and counterbalance that has been a huge blessing for me, because now I just know that we can, really team up, divide and conquer, and we're just stronger together, than we ever were going to be apart. So
Yeah, and I think, dude, I appreciate that, the kind words, and I feel the same about you. And Aaron and I have talked about it for a very long time, and I think we're going to see that with real estate agents. I think we're going to see them, combine resources, and oh wow, we have a little bit less expenses, and we can divide tasks so we can put ourselves in our highest and best use. With merging teams and groups, and we've been thinking about this subconsciously for 3 years.
yeah,
3 years ago we were at Annie Mac's President's Club trip for the top branches in the company and the top loan officers in the company, and we were both top LOs and top branches. And it was my first President's Club trip, and you turned around and looked back at me, and you were like, do you realize if we combined, we'd be number one? And I'll never forget that, because it was like a moment me and you had, and we laughed, and then we turned around, and I know both of us thought for a second that could happen. but then it's fleeting, you know, it's like, all right, you know, move on to the next thing. And then, you know, the market and life and, you know, our branches kind of, you know, as we're recruiting and trying to grow our branches, you know, merging makes it easier to do that and to divide responsibility. And then we saw, you know, the example of Joe P doing that. And I think for me personally, what I learned what to do and what not to do also from that. And I think that a lot of people aren't doing it because it's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not been easy.
Everybody just wants to like, oh, this is the solution for all of it. And like we merge and everything's great. And that's like literally not the reality with anything. That's not the reality with recruiting 1 LO, with recruiting 3 LOs, with hiring ops staff. And I think for me and you, what I love about you and myself and Aaron together is that we went together and we're like, okay, we're going to do this. We know that it's not going to be rainbows and butterflies, but like here are the 700 reasons why we should do this. Here are the 4 why we shouldn't. And let's agree that this is a good thing and just be in it for the challenges that come with merging to, and you said it, like a blended family,
Yes.
you know, merging two groups and having, you know, to learn through that. And I think, you know, we're still in that and we'll always be in that. Like that's a forever evolving thing that I think, you know, for anybody that's listening to this, that's something that like just knowing going into it was very helpful for you and I.
Yeah.
To know that like we're not going to like plug this in and it's just going to be
Just going to be
fireworks.
better, right?
Yeah,
Overnight. Yeah.
like-
it's like marriage, right? So, you know, the
takes time.
idea and in that initial phase, it's always going to be rainbows and butterflies. But, you know, it's over time is when you start to see the flaws and the deficiencies and you know, and so it's really looking past that, you know, and so, you know, to anybody out there who is considering to merge on any level or partner, you know, my advice to you would be, you know, you want to focus on character, right? Like you need to focus on the character of that person, because if the character is strong, you'll work through any challenge that comes along, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be unified in that. You know, if you have the right character and the right integrity and the right, you know, those are things you can't teach. You either have it or you don't.
And I would say that you have that. Like,
I appreciate
dude,
that.
there's no one that I like. You know, everybody works with people who they know, like, and trust, and that's someone that you've been for me. And obviously, me and you have worked together for a very long time. You know, and people are like, "How do you work together with your brother?" It's like, well, character. Like we love each other, we trust each other, and then you just deal with all the other shit.
Right.
You know?
It's never perfect.
Yeah.
But you accept that and you deal with it and you work. It always comes from a place of respect.
Right.
Like anytime there's conflict, and there's always going to be conflict. Like you're not going to reach a goal, and we have very big goals. Like you can't get there without conflict, and it's just how you approach it and how you deal with it.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Character first. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
and I think that's how we've, you know, approached our team and the people that we're bringing onto our team. And it's easier to teach, like, skill set, like how to structure a loan, than it is, like, to be kind.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah. How to
Like,
be generous, how to be kind,
like,
how to do things with integrity. Like,
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, I just can't teach you that. That's just how, you know, or whatever that skill, like hard work. Like, I'm sorry, like, I just can't teach you how to work hard, but I can teach you what to do.
so
in
you
those
work
hours.
smart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of hard work. So
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. What's something that, Aaron, that you've seen with the merge that's like a positive change in, you know, from where our team was before to now?
For sure.
You know, we're merging and, hey, this has been better, easier, etc.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch, and I think like you and I have said this over time as we work together. Like we kind of complement each other. Like, you know, your strengths and weaknesses are not the same as my strengths and weaknesses, and they work really well together. And I've seen that in Nate as well with you. Is there's, you know, a lot of differences in the approach, but they really complement each other, and so that has been really cool to see. And plugging into the team, I think we've seen that as well, where I've seen members from our team kind of step up and come in with a really great arms wide open approach. And same with your team, and like your team being willing to learn and step into this new environment. Like, we didn't know how that was going to go, right? You know, you're mixing, to your point, the blended family. Like, we don't know how that's going to work out. And it's been really cool to see. And I think we've seen some evolving over that time. Like, I think, you know, the roles that each team member took on, you know, day one of this merger is not the same as where we are here today in, you know, close to 90 days now.
And won't be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
2 years from now.
And I think you're going to have some, you know, fights over toys.
Yeah,
in the basement, right? Like,
That's
you
a great
merge,
analogy, yeah.
You merge two families, you're going to have some black eyes. And you're going to, you know, it's part of it. But
Some
I think
jealousy moments. And
Yeah.
Some broken arms, right, Matt?
we won't bring that up. But it's like that's part of it. And I think, you know, the biggest thing that I would say is I thought about how me and you were doing this separate, and it was hard. And then I thought about us doing it together, and it's going to be equally as hard. And I say this to like my team at DeMatha and everybody that I coach is like, you have to choose your hard. Like, both are hard.
I love that.
Like, doing
Yeah.
it alone, like me and you were, like,
Yeah.
not alone. Me and Aaron have been doing it, but we've talked about it and how it was tough to, you know, to not have that additional management, that additional production, that additional support staff. Like, doing it separate, right? And this is with real estate agents, right? They're talking, and they're at different brokerages, or they're at different teams, right? Doing it separate is hard. And then you talk about merging, and that's hard as well. And so that's why a lot of people don't do it, is they're like, well, it's going to be tough and this and this and this. And then, you know, I was talking to a loan officer who's potentially looking to join our team yesterday, and she talked about all these things that are tough that's going on right now, right? But then I'm scared to, like, leave. And so I'm like, it's just an interesting psychological thing with people is that you're afraid because you're like, oh my God, it's going to be so hard with this unknown, right? Like, I'm going to have to learn a new system. We're going to have to see who works well together and all these things. But then you just complained about all the hard, tough struggles that you're having right now. And so you have to just choose your hard and which,
I love
you know,
that.
which hard,
Choose your hard.
you know, that you want to kind of invest in and put your time and your resources in. And, you know, then we decided that we want to choose the hard of doing it together. And, you know, there's no coincidence that, you know, we started, I don't know, end of December type deal. There's no coincidence that February was the best month that we've had.
Right. Right.
In like 12 plus.
Especially for February, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
for February,
Yeah.
shortest month of the year, and we closed the best month that we've had separately / together in over a year. Just right away, we had a loan officer do $4 million in production, and in a one pay period, make the most amount of money that she's ever made in her entire career.
In this market.
In this
One of
market?
the hardest markets
In this
ever.
market. That's like a
crazy.
$12 million month when the market was strong.
When the market's
yes.
good, yeah.
Good.
So,
gracious.
you know, so to see those things that have come out of the hardest time to ever do it, it's just been special. And I think, like, if we can make it in this, you know, market with, you know, there's psychological struggle too with that, right? Like, there's a mental, not just a financial and a personnel, then I'm just, you know, it's crazy to see what's going to happen. You know, the last 3 years that we've been doing it separate, what it's gonna look like, you know, us together, over the next 3 years. And it's just been fun. It's been fun to watch.
And, you know, just as you're talking about this, you know, the merge, the team dynamic, the choose your hard, the, you know, going bat for each other, you know, it just dawned on me that we both played competitive sports, right? So I played D1 soccer. You played at a super high level in lacrosse. I mean, top in the country. And so I just wonder if maybe that's why this works.
Well, you know why, right?
What do you mean?
Me and Aaron have talked about
Yeah,
this.
we've talked about this.
Okay.
What position did you play?
Oh, yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy. That I was a goalie,
Yeah,
you know, and that you too.
all three of us were goalies.
That's insane. That
So
is really interesting.
So I was a goalie in lacrosse. You were a goalie in hockey, and you were a goalie in soccer.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I believe there's no there's no coincidence to that. That is, in order to be a goalie, you have to have a certain mindset and mentality, which is similar to a loan officer. Because as a goalie, if you save 50% of the shots in lacrosse, you're a first-team All-American. And so as a loan officer, if you convert 50% of your credit pools, you're a top 1% loan
You're probably
officer.
top half of a percent.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think just like going through adversity, dealing with injury, and everything that is involved with sport. It's why I coach. It's why I love my kids, and why your kids play sports. Is just the team camaraderie as well, like working with a team, and like you're not going to pick the players that play on the team, but you have to work with them. And the coaches, you're not going to pick this coach, and then guess what? 2 years as you're in the sport, the coach leaves. So you have to learn how to, play with and for a new coach. And I think that translates a lot to what we do as loan officers, and it's just like crazy that we're all goalies.
That is crazy.
One day we'll sponsor a study, and I want to see how many successful people in sales, in all aspects of sales, were goalies, pitchers, quarterbacks, that individual who has the pressure on you.
You're right.
Because I think it's a high level.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that dynamic, and, for those of you who aren't sports people, why is it that a goalie, for example, or quarterback, or, it's because it's all eyes on that person, right? It's they
Pressure.
save the game
Yep.
or they're the reason they lost, right?
Yep.
It's just, and so that learning how to handle that pressure, like, yeah, I think you're right. There's got to be a correlation there,
I talk to
why.
all the loan officers I talk to, whether it's sports or some sort of, personal adversity that they've dealt with in their life. Like, it's a very common theme among, not only just amongst sales, but among successful entrepreneurs.
Yes.
We all listen to these podcasts, and all of them talk about the childhood trauma or deaths in the family, or mental health struggles that they go through, or dealing with being a mom and an entrepreneur, and being like whatever that challenge or that struggle is. I really do think that that's a common thing that we all share. And
Yeah. And
don't
I was
have
just
it any
thinking
other way.
about, like, just why I even brought this up in the first place is because, a team sport, you can be the best player on the team and never win a game, right? So it truly does take a team to win the game.
Yeah.
And also, we're not, superhumans, right? Like, we are human at the end of the day, and we have our moments where we're weak. And so what I love about, joining up with the right mix of people is that when you're weak, the other person's strong, and then they're able to pull you out of whatever it is that's in your head, right?
Yeah.
Because this is a head business, and most sales roles are.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, we couldn't do this alone, man.
No.
It's too hard.
You need
Yeah.
people around you.
It's
Absolutely.
too hard. I
100%.
talk to people who are doing it alone, and I can't even imagine that.
Right.
You
Right.
know what that would look like.
And I
without the
think that's
support.
why it's so hard, for example, for agents. Because
Yeah, right.
realtors,
Yeah.
by nature, are all independent, right? They're all their own businesses. And
They're
so they're
independent contractors. Yep.
correct, you
Yep.
know? And so, yeah, I do think that it has been a rough season. And so I do think, and we've already been seeing it, this consolidation, this let's do things together. We're stronger together than apart, right? And basically putting our pride aside and saying, let's do this. Let's build
Right.
something great together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I've given a lot of pep talks lately, and I wasn't doing that 2 years ago. So you're right. They need us. They need the collaboration. Honestly, that's one of the coolest things that I've seen over the past 3 years is how collaborative this business can be.
Yeah.
And everyone is really at one level willing to help one another. And so
Yeah.
that has been really cool. And we're wanting to do it with our agents. We're doing it with each other, our team. I've really enjoyed seeing that and seeing how our team has collaborated together over the past 90 days.
Yeah, and I think that's new for LOs.
Yeah.
Like, LOs are very cutthroat, competitive. I don't want to tell you what I'm doing because I'm doing this over here. Like, that's been the culture that I've seen in the industry, and we're, changing that and collaborating because, we believe in a mindset of abundance and that,
But
Really
that
whatever-
speaks back to the character piece, right?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that will always be a thing. There's always going to be those who don't have that mindset, and
Yeah.
then there's going to be those
Yeah.
who have
Right.
an abundance
Yep.
mindset. I just choose to want to be around people with an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel like it's a healthy environment to be in, but I never knew that.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's hard for ego.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, like it's been hard. It will always be hard, you know, for us. And some days will be easier than others. And I think it's just that's what's been great for me to watch you and a part of me is like we're just getting better
Yeah.
through that, you know, every single day. And that's special. Like you don't find that, especially with top producers,
Right.
because to do what you've done in your career takes a certain amount of ego.
Yeah.
Like you can't
Just ask my wife.
you can't get punched in the mouth and convert at 25% and not have an ego and win. Like if you don't have an ego and think you're the best, you will lose.
Right.
You will
Right.
get in your own head and you won't be able to, you know, lose 2 contracts, have a real estate agent say they're never going to work with you, and have a client say you're the worst lender they've ever spoken to, and keep making phone calls. And then that next day, pick up 2 agents and
Right.
get 2 contracts and have an agent say you're the
Five-star
best
reviews.
loan officer
Yeah.
and a 5-star review. Right? Like if you don't have ego to think you're of a certain way of yourself, you won't be successful. And so I think it's like such a skill set that is required to like have the ego, but then have the humility to be like,
Right.
okay, well I can get better and, you know, forever be a learning process with each other.
Yeah.
So
That goes back to the goalie thing, right? You just got sniped stick side top corner, and you got to shake it off and go save the next one.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
and I tell this story like one of my recruiting camps that on my junior year of high school, which I think is where I really got recruited, was I got scored on 21 times in a game. And for those in lacrosse, like that's a shit ton. That's a lot of fucking goals.
Yeah, I was like, give me some context.
Yeah,
okay?
so we won the other day like 12-8, for example. So 21 goals is a lot. But I had a ton of saves, came back and saved the goal that ended up to a clear that won us the game. And I think that was like big one of the reasons where it's like, okay, you get punched in the mouth and scored on 21 times and still make the save when it counts and have the ego to think you can do it
Right.
and you don't get down, and then the capacity to finish and win.
That's so funny. Like now that you mentioned that, it just makes me realize. So in college, playing NCAA Division I was ranked number 3 in the country for goalies, right? But the statistic that I was number 3 for was not a goals against average, which is what everybody wants to be, meaning you have the least amount of goals scored on you. It was saves per game. So I had the
shelled.
highest saves per game. I was 3 in the country, but what that really says is that my defense sucked.
Yeah.
And I got peppered, and I got 2 goals scored against me per game on average, right?
Yep.
But I was saving 20. When
Yeah.
the top 3 goalies in the country that were goals against average had like a 0.5 or a 0.25 goals per game.
Yep.
But they got 1 shot,
Yeah.
2 shots, right? So yeah, just thinking now, like, okay, why is it that I have the ability to shake it off? I mean, I get in my head. I have my moments, and
all do,
and
yeah.
you've seen them, but yeah, it's like, you know, what do we say? Lose fast,
Yep.
right? Or, you know, but yeah, I mean, I think any great athlete and any top professional is going to be someone that loses fast and says,
Yep.
all right, like I'm moving on. That doesn't define me, you know, and let me go make another great save.
Absolutely. And what I love about the story you told, Matt, is it's like a microcosm of our team. Like you got scored on 21 times, but your team had your back and said, we got 22 goals in us.
Yep.
Love
you
that.
can't win that game alone.
And I'll never forget it because I know he's going to watch this. Scott LaRue, I got scored on that goal, and it was at the buzzer in regulation, and we went into overtime. And he came up to me, and he looked at me, and said, I'm going to win the game for you.
I love that.
And I knew it. He looked at me, he said that shit, and I was like, this is going to happen. Made the save. He was sprinting up the field, wide open, hit him over the shoulder. He went down and scored.
Wow.
And I just that's the team.
Right.
Like that is, I wouldn't have thought that if I didn't have him come up and say that to me, you know? And so it's like the ego and the team work hand in hand. And I'm excited that we're doing this because it's showing the three of us, but really we have an entire team
Yeah.
that is behind us that we would never be able to do this without them. And so I'm excited for the next one of these to have to get the team on here for us to introduce them and see the why of why we were able to merge and the people that push us and the culture that we have.
And on that note, we're looking for more people like that, right? To add to the team, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people with character.
Yep.
That's going to make us stronger. That's going to score that 20-second goal when we just tied it up and, get to get to overtime. We're looking for those guys. So
if you're looking for a good team, hit us up. We're
Here
growing. I appreciate you guys. And, excited to keep this thing rolling.
Yeah,
and grow
it's
here
been
in
fun.
2024.
Grip and rip.
Let's do it.